Moana. It's time that you knew the box office isn't looking so good for you anymore. Folks, we're talking about Moana 2 and the fact that Disney released a half-baked movie that finally audiences may have had enough of. Wicked also suffering. It's not good for theaters as every single movie basically missed the mark. We'll tell you why and how Hollywood can fix it right now. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Pro Channel, where we are changing hearts and minds one video at a time. Welcome back to the place that only broadcasts excellence to you as we continue to explain entertainment and indeed keep you ahead of the culture curve. Today, we're going to be spending a lot of time with thenumbers.com. We love the website, and they have an article out right now. Weekend projections: Moana and Wicked stay top 10 as new releases hit top 20. But this was a very bad week for movie theaters. That is not, by the way, being talked about. Nobody is talking about it. We're going to show you, and perhaps nobody had a worse week than Rachel Zegler. We'll show you why. Folks, click the like button. And by the way, bonus material at the end, we're going to show you why Moana 2 not performing as well as it could have. Well, it could be the final film where this really matters in the way that it does, because artificial intelligence is now likely to take over animation. We'll show it to you. Hang tight. Don't believe us? Well, sit tight. We'll get there. Here's the article. It says Disney reckons Moana 2 will hit $300 million at the domestic box office this weekend, with its $52 million projected weekend the best ever for a film in the weekend after Thanksgiving. And, by the way, folks, all of that sounds wonderful. I hate to rain on a parade. I just hate to. But see all that red down at the bottom? See that red down there? We're going to have to rain on the parade. With another $300 million internationally, the animated sensation already has $600 million globally. Wicked and Gladiator 2 stay in second and third spot this weekend, and Red 1 stays fourth. Below that, no less than 10 new releases appear in the top 20 this weekend, as almost every non-major studio distributor tries to take advantage of the last fairly clear window before the end of the year. All right, let's take a look and see why this was a bad weekend for cinemas, despite the fact that the mainstream media is telling you otherwise. And it is because if you take a look on the right side of this chart, every single number is in red. Well, it's more in salmon, but we can't say that, right? We'll call it red. Moana 2 got 90% of its projected money that it was supposed to make, meaning that it was projected to get $58 million. It only picked up $52 million. It also had a drop above 60%, which you never, ever, never want to see if you're going to have a movie that has legs. 63% the drop. Anything above 65, you're in real trouble. I'm going to show you in a minute. We're going to show you the chart for Moana 2, and I'll show you why it's in trouble. Wicked dropped only 57%. So its main competitor, right, Moana 2, suffered a 7% additional drop beyond what Wicked did. So Wicked, and essentially, because we're rounding here, there's a decimal you can't see, but 7%, oh, fine, we'll give it to them 6%, but it's really 7 if you include the decimals. 6% will be kind. 6% delta there between Moana 2 and Wicked. Wicked performing better in terms of its overall hold at the box office. However, in the prediction category, Wicked only picks up 86% of its predicted amount of money that it was supposed to make. So not good there either. Why? Well, because we're talking about the opportunity cost loss, right? Opportunity cost loss. And when I remind you that Moana 2 is supposed to break $1 billion by virtue of the fact that Moana, the original, was the most streamed movie year after year of any movie in the world. It's the most streamed, flat out, number one. So Moana 2, if it's just decent and it's not woke, then it should break $1 billion. The problem is Disney decided to release a Moana movie that in fact is on par with Lightyear or Strange World in terms of writing quality, but it's definitely not woke. So good job, they got half of the equation. It's going to struggle to break the $1 billion. We'll show you why. Wicked, on the other hand, has a different problem. Wicked's marketing is awful. And Cynthia Erivo is doing this film no favor, driving away audiences who would be on the margins, who might go see it if not for her crazy, zany, wacky ways. And of course, Ariana Grande, she's going along for the ride. Gladiator 2, on the meantime, saw a 60% drop. Red 145%, but again, nobody performing quite as poorly as Rachel Zegler, who stars in the new Y2K. And it is not doing A-OK because Y2K actually picked up all of the new theater showings. And I'm going to show you that to you in just a minute, okay? But let's read this. We'll come back to Y2K in a minute. Moana 2 has already surpassed the domestic gross of Moana, and our model, wait a minute. And our model, they don't mean to write new there. That's what your pal pro. Listen, folks, I did not have a faux pas. I did not mess up. It's the error here on the website. Look at it, tricking me. And our model now predicts it will finish its domestic run with $439 million. Okay. Here's the problem. What have I said for years? For years, I have said that Moana 2, if it's decent and if it's not woke, it will break $1 billion. What's the problem with $439 million domestic? Well, I'm glad you asked. If Moana 2 has an equal domestic to international showing, then this gets us to 860 or 870. It doesn't get us to where we need to be. You want 880? Fine. You know what? Let's round it up. 900 million. And that means that Moana 2 is 100 million short of where it should be at minimum. And if it were any good at all, if it was any good, Moana 2 would beat Inside Out 2. Because Moana is a far more popular franchise than Inside Out. And yet, because they pulled what they did, having a TV show be retrofitted into a movie in 6 months, essentially taking the first episode and a half and combining it with the last 2 episodes and cutting out all the in-between except a coconut adventure, like, that's a terrible idea. That's not doing justice to your brand. This is your most popular princess brand. Oh, and by the way, in the movie, she says she's not a princess. Genius. You're welcome. So now you have this film that's not going to break $1 billion, perhaps. And here's the problem. Here's the problem for Disney. See, folks, let's take for a moment. Think about this. Wild Robot. Chris Sanders. He's the guy behind it. Fantastic. We love it. And we have talked about Wild Robot being a success, despite the fact that Wild Robot made what, 200 million? And yet it's a success. It's a success because it's a brand new IP with no expectations and because the budget's so small. However, Moana 2 has a ton of expectation because it's the sequel to the biggest streaming property on the planet. It's huge. So where it is expected to land matters. And it matters because Disney's going to release a live action next. And Disney's going to release a Moana 3 next. So if you release a very lackluster product, and if you do so intentionally because you do not care, Bob Iger, then you have diminished your most popular, most lucrative, most important franchise. You understand? This is why Moana 2, though it may be a financial success, and there is some debate, by the way, because all we've been given is the budget for the TV show. Nobody has said, oh, what did it cost to transform this thing into a movie in 6 months? Nobody's asking that, and nobody knows exactly how much that cost, and we're never going to know. But it was a lot. So this movie is not quite the darling that you might think it would be. Now, it's going to make $100, $200, $300 million. I don't know exactly how much because they're never going to release the numbers. But Moana 2, were it good? Had it a decent soundtrack that kids could sing? Were it a story worth watching? It should be Inside Out 2 levels of success at least. It at least should break $1 billion. And unfortunately, it does not appear to be doing so. Let's take a look at this graph we've got here on Moana 2. And you can see, it's not me making this up, after its colossal opening, which, by the way, is based on the goodwill of the original. This to me, this is so reflective of The Last Jedi in some ways. So The Last Jedi, if you'll recall, had that huge opening because of the goodwill of Star Wars fans, and then they were crushed by the terrible nature of the film. Moana 2 is not as bad. But take a look at this. It plateaued for the entire week. And then you have a very minor upswing from people who are going to see it on the second weekend. But take a look at this first weekend. You've got this first weekend here, and then you've got the second weekend. It's teeny tiny. Now, the second weekend did manage to get it in the very bottom third or very bottom quarter of the expected range. But if it performs the way it did this next week, as it did in the prior weekdays, it's going to drop out of that predictive range again. And that means that this movie is underperforming what the expectation is based on the opening. The reason it's doing that is because the reviews have been so lackluster. Now, I want to show you this. Let's go to the numbers flat out, and we're going to take a look right now. I want to show you why Zegler's the real loser, though. If we go down here to number 9, Y2K, this is Zegler. She's the star of it. This is how little star power she has, and this is why Hollywood is turning against her, by the way. Y2K, I want you to look at the theater numbers here, okay? So up at the top, you've got Moana 2 holding on to 4,200 theaters. That's contractual. That's why it's zeros at the end. Wicked lost 3 theaters total for 3,885. Gladiator 2, Red 1. They lost a few theaters. So where did all the theaters come from that they were able to give Y2K 2,100 theaters? Well, it came from them eliminating, if we go down, every other movie that was down there in the lower percentages. Like all the old movies are gone now. They just emptied them out, and they gave all of those to Y2K so that it could have 2,108 theaters. Folks, take a look at this. Y2K with Rachel Zegler only made $2.1 million. Do you know how bad that is? Well, let me show you how bad that is. Moana 2 per theater is making $12,200. Wicked per theater is making $9,382. Gladiator 2, which really is not doing well, is making $3,655 per theater. Y2K barely broke the $1,000 per theater mark. That is embarrassing to any film that gets more than 1,000 theaters. And by the way, Werewolves down there is in the same kind of awful territory, but Werewolves doesn't have the future Snow White starring in it. So none of that is good. But for Moana 2, one of the reasons that Disney needs to break the $1 billion mark with Moana 2, and it's going to be embarrassing to them if they don't break the $1 billion mark. Trust me on this, they need Moana 2 to break the $1 billion mark. Trust me on this, it's big for Bob for them to do it. One of the reasons is because animation is changing forever. These are video clips coming out of Sora, the new ChatGPT video, what would you call this? Rendering? Generation system using artificial intelligence. Text to video generation. And this is going to change everything in entertainment. At first, it's going to be clunky and strange. But everybody who works at Pixar, everybody who works at Disney Animation is looking at this today and realizing that their days are numbered. Yes, there will still be a few people who exist as 3D animators whose job it is to create character models or to texture, to provide the source material for these text-to-video generators. But ultimately, this is the future of generation. This is going to take the cost of animation and reduce it by it's going to reduce it by 99.9%. And it's a totally different way of doing things. It's going to open new jobs and careers up to people. But this is going to revolutionize and change everything. And you can argue that it's for better, or you can argue for that it's worse, or you can say that you wish this wasn't as it is. You can call it art washing, whatever you want to do. But it's here. And today, it's changing everything, and it will from here on out. And there will be competitors to this, but everything is changing. And Disney's position at the head of animation is changing. Because as this now is disseminated across the world, into the homes of anybody who has an artistic feeling and wants to bring it to life, what this means is they now need a much smaller budget to do this. And you could say, well, it's not quite at that level yet. And you're right. But it will be in 4 or 5 years. And once you figure out that the gestational period for a Disney or any other Illuminations, whoever you want to do, an animated film is 3 to 5 years, then you realize that Disney and Illuminations and DreamWorks and all those companies, they are not competing with the AI generation tools of today when they make a film, when they decide they're going to greenlight a film. They're competing with those 3, 4, and 5 years from now. And that is radically different, radically better, and almost unfathomable. So get ready. Moana 2, they really needed it to be a $1 billion winner, because it might be that they are running out of time quickly to be at the head of animation in the way that they have always been. Keep an eye on this, folks. It's big. It's really big, and it's extraordinarily disruptive to Hollywood. Entirely. The revolution is here. Unless you're Rachel Zegler, in which case, well, you're not really going to be evolving with anything because, remember, you got Y2K. So at the same time we get brand new tech, Rachel Zegler is still back in Y2K, and it's an awful place to be. Folks, if you like this video, consider clicking the like button, share, subscribe, click it, and stick it to the algorithms. It is the notification bell. Drop a comment down below. Let us know your thoughts on all of this. And folks, wherever you are and whatever you're doing, keep learning, keep growing, and keep having fun.
No, hey Florel, what you doing? Thinking about Rome?
No, I wasn't. But thanks. Now I lost the game.
Dang it. Now I lost the game. No. Well, now you're a double loser.
Hey guys, you know what would help you in your grief? Forgetting those things and filling your mind with articles from thatparkplace.com and using that website as a launching pad to get you lost in thought with all of the team from there.
Yeah, that's actually a good idea.
Yeah.
Oh, well, Flora, would you look down here?
I hate you.